Today we're going to look at relationships and building relationships and who and what are we building relationships with. The first thing we look at is, are you using your flesh to promote yourself? Are you using your carnal thinking, your body shape, or clothes to get what you want? Now, it's understandable to dress appropriately for a business environment or a social engagement, a black tie affair. But what level of priority do you put on external things, such as clothes, such as your body, such as your thinking, your degrees, your achievements in this earth, on getting the things you want and receiving the things that you already had? What part did they truly play in acquiring your goals or reaching your goals? Are these earthly things providing you with what you want? Or better yet, your human understanding of how the procedures and systems of this earth operate, providing what you want, or is it your God? Is dressing a certain way going to get you to a certain position? Be it a wife, a husband, a manager, a supervisor, promotion at work. To answer this question, we can go to Genesis chapter 41, verses 14 through 16. As we go to Genesis chapter 41, we will be looking at Joseph's life, or a little section of Joseph's life, while he was in prison. And as we examine Joseph's life, we will hopefully reveal the true source of his promotion, his sustenance, and his guidance. I begin this message talking about clothes and dress, and these are common things that we all experience, especially when we go out shopping and get a new set of this or a new pair of that, a new suit, a new dress. We try it on and it looks good on us and we look good in it, and it makes us feel good. And we take it home and we put it in our closet and we wait for the day that we can take it out and have it a special occasion in which to wear our new clothes. And when we put it on and we go to our special occasion, we feel good. having the new pair of shoes, new clothes, new pants, new dress, new shirt. We walk with a little pep in our step. We feel a little more confident. And the same thing occurs with any other thing that we may acquire. We can look at education when we graduate high school, when we graduate from college or get a technical degree, an associate's degree. When we get a new job, when we get a license, we feel good about that. We've done something. We've acquired something that can help us move on to the next step. And for a few days, we feel good. Maybe a week or month. Or even after the wedding day, the honeymoon, and the first few months of being married. You feel good. You've acquired something. You found something. You found a husband. You found a wife. And you feel good. You found something that was good. And that makes you feel a special way. So as we get into Joseph's life, while he was in prison, let's try to discover the source of his direction, the source of his promotion. The source of his livelihood. Because once we discover our source, the thing which truly gives us that good feeling, that purpose, then we will begin to cultivate a relationship with that. If you think it is your clothes, your name brand suit or designer dress or luxury car, if that is your source, then you will develop a relationship with it. If it is the rims on your car that gets you what you want, then you will take care of them. You will venerate them. If it is your big house that gives you some sense of status, if you think that is truly the source, if it is your bank account, what's in it, if that's your source for your livelihood, then you will develop a relationship with it. That will be a priority in your mind. I need to think about my investments. I need to earn more. I need to put in some overtime. All of these things are well and good, but I don't believe that these earthly things are your source. And they are possibly not worthy of building a relationship with. They're worthy of having and acquiring to conduct business in the earth, but should we develop a relationship with them? Now, as we look in Genesis 41, verses 14 through 16, Joseph had been in jail, and in verse 14, it says, "Then Pharaoh sent and called for Joseph. And they hurriedly brought him out of the dungeon. And when he had shaved himself and changed his clothes, he came to Pharaoh." Joseph has just been called to a meeting with the ruler of all of Egypt. And right here we see that though Joseph changed his clothes and shaved and cleaned himself up, his meeting with Pharaoh preceded all of those actions. They were secondary. He had the good sense to clean himself up and take a bath. Yes, that's basic hygiene. But the clothes he put on and his clean-shaven face played relatively no role, or little to no role, in his getting a meeting with the Pharaoh. Joseph was preoccupied with surviving in jail. He had attained a little position as a trustee in prison when all of a sudden he got a call from Pharaoh's officials to direct him to go to a meeting with the Pharaoh. Joseph's exercise routine, his wardrobe, his jewelry. He didn't have a car, but a horse, anything. But those things didn't put him in a position of meeting with the Pharaoh, the ruler of all of Egypt. His stress, his preoccupation with these things, or whatever things he had in prison, or his position as trustee in the prison, did not get him to a meeting with the Pharaoh. And yes, Joseph spent time thinking about these things: his current position, his daily health, if he exercised or not, what he would wear. He thought about those things, but there was something else, another source that behind the scenes was orchestrating Joseph's future. Now let's go to verse 15 in Genesis 41. Pharaoh said to Joseph, "I have had a dream, but no one can interpret it. And I have heard it said about you that when you hear a dream, you can interpret it." And in verse 16, Joseph then answered Pharaoh, saying, "It is not in me. God will give Pharaoh a favorable answer." And brothers and sisters, verse 16 states the guiding or dominant principle that was on Joseph's mind. It is not me. God will give Pharaoh a favorable answer. It is not the clothes that I have on. It is not that I have shaved. It is not the car that I pulled up in. It is not the house that I live in. It's not my residence. God is the answer. None of the things that we see people preoccupying their time with, such as in clothes, acquiring them, and degrees, your network connections, your jewelry, your body shape or size or strength, your workout regimen, none of these things are going to give you favor. In some circumstances, yes. In situations with people of a worldly and world mindset, this may be the case. Fleshly desires and people with a fleshly mind state will move according to that. A boss may promote a sexy secretary, and that just leads to harassment. That just, the road down that path leads to destruction. The recent trend of body shaming and all of the other activities surrounding this type of thinking in individuals directly correlate to a fleshly mindset. If you're thinking about the flesh, then you're concerned about the flesh, then the flesh is on your mind. And people will be able to shame you if your body is your source. But since Jesus is sitting at the right hand of God, there's no shame in Jesus. All glory and honor has been given to him. So if Jesus is your source, any attacks, you direct them to Jesus. He'll take care of it. They can't shame Jesus. And since they can't shame Jesus, and Jesus is the priority on your mind, he is your source, then they can't shame you. The problem comes in when you put faith in your body. Then you can be body shamed. If you put faith in a car, a bank account, the status on your job, your house, your residence, when you put faith in those things, you can be shamed. They can cause emotional problems with stress and depression. When you put your faith in those things. But see, we can see in verse 16 that Joseph's faith was in God. He didn't tell Pharaoh, well, yeah, I give you an answer. I know by my strength. The first thing came out of Joseph's mouth was that it is not me. God will give you the answer. Joseph may have been a little nervous with this meeting with Pharaoh, but as you see, he cast his cares on the Lord. He said, it ain't me. God is going to give you the answer. And that's what we need to do. We need to start building our relationship with the Lord. And it starts with casting our cares to the Lord. And then in certain situations, and in every situation rather, we will have joy in the Lord, because we will have learned by placing faith and trust in God that He will deliver us from all circumstances, one way or the other. And then we can say, like the Apostle Paul in Romans, all things work together for good for those that love the Lord, who are called according to His purpose. You see, Joseph was called not according to Joseph's purpose, according to Joseph's networking with the butler and the baker and the deal that he made with them. Joseph was called before Pharaoh according to the purposes of the Lord. And they were good for Joseph. Things worked out. All things worked out good for Joseph. And Joseph's statement, that's a statement of love. It's not me. It is God who will give you an answer. When Joseph stepped back and put God forward, displayed God for Pharaoh, he was giving God the glory. He wanted to be understood that it was God that was promoting him, giving him the insight. Just like sometimes people pull up in the car and park it sideways, hop out so everybody can see. Or some of the young people today, they play their loud music. They want people to see, giving glory to their money they spent on this. Hold out their hands so you can see their jewelry, their watch, or how they had this augmented, that augmented, or showing off how much they can bench in the gym by the tight fitting clothes. They've stepped back and put that forward. They want to give that the glory. The work of their hands, or what they think is their hands. They're giving that glory. But how many people today are giving God glory? How many people are willing to step back and give God the glory? Now, when we look at verses 42 through 43, Joseph is given certain things. Okay, in verse 41, Pharaoh said to Joseph, "See, I have set you over all the land of Egypt." Then Pharaoh took off his signet ring from his hand and put it on Joseph's hand, and clothed him in garments of fine linen, and put the gold necklace around his neck. He had him ride in his second chariot, and they proclaimed before him, "Bow the knee," and he set him over all the land of Egypt. It looks like Joseph got the ring, he got the clothes, and he got the car. According to the riches and glory of the ruler of all the land. Today, my heart is saddened because I see the youth and many adults have things backwards. They think the clothes, the car, the gold chains and jewelry mean something. They spend all their energy on getting these things, or the big house, the fancy car, getting into this school, when these things in the big scheme of things are secondary and third level priorities. The first priority that especially Christians should have is to God. And all these things shall be added, as it says in Matthew 6:33. These items that people put all their effort into acquiring are things. That is why their position in a person's life should be secondary or even lower. If we place a home or job as the primary focus for our lives, then that thing will control our behavior. If a home, gold chain, fashionable clothes, car, wife, husband, man, or woman become our first priority, we will eventually become lost in a wilderness of unhappiness and unfulfillment. All of these things must be prioritized under the will and word of God. If we are looking for a wife or husband, which is a noble pursuit, are we adjusting our efforts with godly virtues and principles in mind? Is our personal devotion to God in order? Are we looking for a man or woman, or a godly man or godly woman? Are we as individuals godly men or godly women? The most important thing we must consider and prioritize is our individual walk with God. We do not need to have as our first priority our walk with a gold chain, or our walk with a job, a man or a woman, how we look in this designer outfit. The most important thing is, how do we look to God? Not how are we going to look and acquire a luxury car. I say, brothers and sisters, that Joseph didn't have any of these things on his mind while he was living in the pit of an Egyptian jail. Joseph was positioned in a place by God so that he could learn and develop a reliance totally on God. When the Pharaoh's cupbearer and baker came into Joseph's presence, a relationship was allowed to develop. Genesis 40, verse 14. Joseph asked the cupbearer to remember me when it is well with you, so maybe I can get out of this place. Joseph was subject to place his hopes in being released from prison in his networking with the Pharaoh's cupbearer, and not his relationship with the Lord. Joseph could have thought to try and send a letter or several letters to the cupbearer. Joseph could have thought of several ways in which he could have offered himself to the cupbearer instead of God, so that he could get out of jail. Who do I need to network with along with the cupbearer to get myself out of jail? Could have occupied Joseph's mind while he was in jail. God did not allow these unprofitable thoughts to develop in Joseph's mind. God allowed 2 years to pass before Pharaoh's need would be ready for Joseph's properly, divinely guided insight and advice. Joseph had to have sufficient time to forget about depending on his networking and return to depending totally on God. That is why Joseph could tell the Pharaoh, "It is not me. God will give Pharaoh an answer." God must be first in all of his servants' lives. Not your gold, money, network contacts, degrees, clothes, body type, shape, house, car, or any other thing. Brothers and sisters, trust in God must be our first and dominant priority. All of our other priorities and aspirations in this life must come under our trust and respect for God. If we do this, then our lives will be aligned and blessed by the God of all creation and by the grace provided by Christ's finished work on the cross.